My name is Claire Hartley. I am 38 years old. And when I woke up from a coma on a Thursday morning, the only person I recognized in the room was my mother. She was sitting in the corner chair, her hands in her lap, her gray cardigan, the small gold cross she has worn since before I can remember. I knew her immediately, the way you know something that has been true your whole life. She saw my eyes open. She stood up slowly. She came to the bed. She said, "Claire." "Oh, sweetheart." "Claire." I said, "Mum." She started crying. Then a man walked into the room. He was perhaps 40 years old, dark hair, kind eyes. He was carrying 2 paper cups of coffee, and when he saw me awake, he stopped so suddenly that coffee sloshed onto his hand. He said, "Claire, thank God." He looked at me with the specific expression of someone who loves you completely. I had no idea who he was. I looked at my mother. I said, "Mom, who is that man?" The room went completely quiet. Let me tell you what I knew when I woke up. I knew my name, Claire Hartley. I knew my mother, Margaret Hartley, the cardigan, the cross, the smell of her hand cream that has been the same brand since I was 6 years old. I knew I was in a hospital, the sounds, the lighting, the specific antiseptic smell. I knew I was 38 years old. I knew I had grown up in a small town in Yorkshire. I knew I had studied architecture at university. I knew my mother's phone number from when I was a child. That was the shape of what I knew. Everything after university was gone. 16 years. The man with the coffee, gone. The 2 small faces that appeared in the doorway behind him minutes later. A girl with dark, curly hair and a boy with his father's eyes. Both of them looking at me with expressions that broke my heart, because I could see they loved me and I could not feel it back. Gone. All of it gone. I looked at my mother. She was still holding my hand. I said, "Mom, I don't know them." She said, "I know, sweetheart. It's okay. It will come back." But the way she said it told me she was not certain. His name was James Hartley, my husband of 11 years. He told me this gently, sitting in the chair beside my bed, his coffee forgotten on the windowsill. He said, "We met at an architecture firm in London. You were 27. I was 29. We were married 3 years later. We live in Hackney. We have been there for 8 years. He said it the way you read a report, factual, steady, trying to give me information without overwhelming me. I listened to every word. None of it landed. He said, "Our daughter is Lily. She is 9. Our son is Noah. He is 7. I said, "Lily and Noah." He said, "Yes." I said, "They're beautiful." He said, "They look like you." Mostly. I said, "I'm sorry, James." He said, "Don't be sorry, just get better." He said it without flinching. I watched his face when he said it, and I thought, this is a good man. I do not remember loving him, but I can see why I did. The neurologist's name was Dr. Amara Osei. She was 47 years old. She had a manner of explaining complex things, simply that I recognized as the product of long practice. She said, "What you are experiencing is a specific form of retrograde amnesia following the traumatic brain injury. The most recent memories are typically the most vulnerable. Older memories, childhood, early life, are more deeply encoded and more resistant to disruption." She said, "Your memories of the past 16 years are not gone. They are inaccessible. There is a significant difference." I said, "What brings them back?" She said, "That varies enormously. For some patients, specific sensory triggers, a smell, a piece of music, physical familiarity with a place or object. For others, the memories return gradually, over weeks or months. For some, they return suddenly and completely in response to a significant emotional event." I said, "And if they don't come back?" She said, "Then you build new ones, with the same people." She said it without false comfort, just as a fact. I appreciated that. The object at the center of everything was a photograph, not a digital one. James brought it on the second day, a framed print, 5 by 7. He placed it on my bedside table without explanation. It was a photograph of the four of us, me and James, and Lily and Noah. We were on a beach somewhere, all of us squinting into the sun. Noah had an ice cream. Lily was mid-laugh at something. James had his arm around me, and I was leaning into him in the specific way of someone who has been leaning on the same person for years. I looked at that photograph for a long time. I recognized the beach, Whitby. We had gone there as children. My mother had taken me every summer until I was 12. I did not recognize the family in the photograph, but something about the way I was leaning into James felt right in a way I could not explain. James said, "Lily took that photo. She was 7. It came out better than most adult photographs I have ever taken." I said, "She has a good eye." He said, "She gets that from you." My mother stayed at the hospital every day. She slept in the family room down the hall. She brought her own tea bags because she could not tolerate hospital tea. She read her book in the corner chair. She was present without being demanding. She gave me space and proximity simultaneously in the way that only someone who has known you your entire life knows how to do. On the 4th day, she sat beside me and she said, "Do you want me to tell you about him?" About James, not the facts, the other things. I said, "Yes." "No, no, no." She said, "When you first brought him home, I thought he was too quiet. You know how I feel about quiet men. Your father was a quiet man, and that was not always easy." I said, "I know." She said, "But James was quiet in a different way. Your father was quiet because he was keeping things in. James is quiet because he is listening. There is a difference." I said, "What did he listen to?" She said, "Everything. Every story you told, every complaint, every plan. He listened the way people listen when they actually want to know." She said, "When Lily was born and you were frightened in the way that new mothers are frightened, he sat on the floor of the nursery for 3 nights in a row. He didn't sleep. He just sat there so you wouldn't be alone if you needed him." She said, "And when Noah was born and there were complications and you were in surgery for 2 hours, he held my hand in the waiting room. Not the other way around. He held mine." I looked at the photograph on my bedside table, the way I was leaning into him. I said, "Mom, I can see why I loved him. I just can't feel it yet." She said, "Feeling comes from knowing. You'll know him again." She patted my hand. She said, "You always did." Lily came to visit on the 5th day. Just Lily. James had taken Noah to his parents for the weekend to give him some stability. Lily had asked to come. James had let her choose. She was 9 years old. Dark curly hair, my nose, James's eyes. She sat in the chair beside my bed with a careful dignity that did not belong on a 9-year-old. She said, "Dad says you can't remember us right now." I said, "That's right." "I'm sorry, Lily." She said, "He says it might come back." I said, "It might." She said, "And if it doesn't?" I said, "Then we start from here, and we build new memories." She looked at me for a long moment. She said, "That sounds like something you would say." I said, "Does it?" She said, "Yes. You always say that when things go wrong. You say we start from here and we build." I said, "Do I?" She said, "Yes. When I failed my maths test last year. When Noah broke his arm. When the pipes burst at Christmas and ruined everything. You always say that." She said, "It usually works." I said, "Then let's try it again." She looked at the photograph on my bedside table. She said, "I took that photo. Did Dad tell you?" I said, "He told me." She said, "Mom, I think I got it right." I said, "You got it exactly right." She reached out and took my hand. Her hand in mine, small, warm, completely familiar in a way that made no sense given that I had no memory of holding it. But it felt right, like the way I leaned into James in the photograph, right in the body before it was right in the mind. I want to pause here, because what happened on the 6th day, the thing that brought it all back, is the moment I have thought about every day since. If you have ever lost something you loved and found it again in a place you did not expect, then drop a comment below and subscribe right now. Because what happened on the 6th day and what I felt when it came back is the part I have been building toward. On the 6th day, my mother brought her record player, not a phone, not a digital file, her actual record player, the small portable one she had bought in 1974. She had carried it on the bus and through 2 hospital corridors and plugged it into the socket beside my bed without asking anyone's permission. She put on a record. She said, "This is what I played the night you were born. I have played it every year on your birthday since. Every single year without exception." The needle touched the record. Music filled the room. A song I did not consciously know. And something happened. Not gradual, not slow, sudden, complete, like a door opening. I remembered James on our first date, a restaurant in Islington. He had been nervous. He had knocked his water glass and apologized 3 times. I remembered the morning Lily was born, the weight of her, the specific smell of the top of her head. I remembered Noah at 2 years old running across the garden in his red boots, the boots with the frogs on them. He had insisted on wearing them every day for 4 months. I remembered James on the floor of the nursery, his back against the wall, watching over us. I remembered 11 years, not all at once, in waves, each one arriving behind the last. I started crying. My mother said, "Claire, what is it?" I said, "Call James. Call him right now." She called him. He arrived in 22 minutes. He walked into the room. He looked at me. I said, "James, the restaurant in Islington. You knocked your water glass." His face changed. He said 3 times. I apologized 3 times. I said, "It was charming." I thought it was charming. He sat on the edge of the bed. He took my hands in both of his, and I felt it. Finally, completely. Everything I had not been able to feel for 6 days. The memories came back in full over the following 2 weeks. Not perfectly, not every detail, but enough. The shape of 11 years, the texture of the life we had built. Dr. Osei said the music was a classic sensory trigger. That early emotional memories, encoded with specific sensory associations, are often the most resistant to disruption and the most powerful in recovery. She said, "Your mother's instinct was exactly right." My mother said, "It wasn't instinct. I just thought you needed to hear something true." I was discharged 3 weeks after I woke up. James drove me home. We pulled up to the house in Hackney, 8 years of our life in that house. I recognized it this time. I remembered the paint color we had argued about, the garden James had built during lockdown, the kitchen renovation that had taken 3 months longer than planned. Lily and Noah were waiting on the front step, Noah in his coat, Lily holding a sign she had made herself. The sign said, "Welcome home, Mum. We built new memories while you were gone. Here are some old ones, too." Below the words, she had taped 6 photographs. The beach at Whitby, Noah's red boots, James and me at our wedding, Christmas morning, the first day of school, a Sunday morning in bed with everyone piled in together. I stood on the pavement and I looked at the sign. I said to James, "She has a good eye." He said, "She gets it from you." I walked up the path. Noah ran to me first. He buried his face in my coat. He said, "Mum, you smell the same." I held him. I said, "That's good." He said, "Dad said you might be different when you came back." I said, "Am I?" He looked up at me. He said a little, "But the important bits are the same." I laughed. It was the first real laugh since I woke up. It felt like coming home before I had even walked through the door. My mother came for dinner that first evening. She brought her record player. She put on the same record. We ate together, all 5 of us, the ordinary mess and noise of a family meal. James burning the garlic bread, Lily and Noah arguing about something small and immediately forgettable. My mother telling a story she had told before, and everyone listening anyway. I sat at my kitchen table, and I thought about waking up on that Thursday morning and seeing the man with the coffee and feeling nothing. And I thought about the moment the music started and the door opened. And I thought about Noah's face when he said, The important bits are the same. The important bits. He was 7 years old. He was exactly right. Here is what 6 days in a record player taught me. Some things are encoded so deeply that nothing can reach them. Not a coma, not 16 missing years, not the specific terror of looking at the people you love and feeling nothing. Your mother's voice, the weight of your child the first time you held them, the way someone holds your hand when they have been holding it for 11 years. These things go somewhere that damage cannot reach. You cannot always access them, but they are there. They are always there, waiting for the needle to touch the record. Drop a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one. And subscribe. I am here every week with a new story. Some things are encoded so deeply that nothing can reach them. Not a coma, not 16 missing years, not the terror of looking at the people you love and feeling nothing. They are always there, waiting for the needle to touch the record.